Hello, everyone. This is David Pletus again. We're going to get started now. So thank you very much for joining today. This is our Risk First Reward, a framework for evaluating and implementing cloud applications. I'm the founder and CEO at Better Cloud. And you're joining us today for the second in our Cloud IT webinar series. This is it's already been great. We had about 700 people join us last time, about 600 today, and you know the focus here is just to share best practices around managing your Cloud IT environments. And talk about some of the challenges that others are facing, solutions that we've seen across our customer base. So thank you again for joining today. The next webinar will be August 12th, and that's going to be mostly around automation and workflows, automation, and how to just focus your energy less on the routine work and more on some of the strategic work that we believe and we've seen is required as you move to a full cloud IT environment. So again, thank you for joining. We're going to start today like we do with most of our webinars, where I'd like to ask a question of the audience just to understand exactly who it is that's on the webinar today, who I'm speaking with. So I am going to open up this poll here, and you're going to see it on your screen. And the question is, how often does your organization review or monitor your cloud applications? So how often are you going in, most of the people here today, I believe, are in IT. How often are you going in and auditing the cloud applications that are being used in your organization? Yep, so I'm just going to give everyone a couple minutes here, not a couple minutes, about 30 seconds here to respond. We're at about 50% now. Okay, great. Thank you very much. So let me show you the answers here. So pretty interesting. You know, I think this is what we're seeing. Talking to customers, we see this, which is most of the times it's maybe a couple times a year or never, and that's the vast majority. And there are very few people doing it on a monthly basis or more than every once a month. And really, that's the reason we decided to focus on that today, and why we're doing this webinar is to share what we've seen as best practices and how you can ensure kind of long-term success given that you're adopting these cloud applications. So let me jump into the presentation here. So first of all, let's just get started. Cloud applications, I think everyone is very well aware of what cloud applications are. Cloud applications are applications that are hosting your data on the web, you know, not inside of your environment, not inside your premises, and really managed, maintained, upgraded by some third party. Today specifically, we are going to focus on the cloud applications that are integrated applications. So today we're going to focus on the integrated applications that can be integrated into your Google Apps environment, your Office 365 environment, your Salesforce environment. So we're really going to be focusing on these integrated applications, which are integrating at the API level and getting access to your data at that level. So again, focusing on the Chrome Web Store, Google Apps Marketplace, Office Store. People today, end users in your organizations, can go to the Apple App Store and install an application and authenticate with their work credentials. You know, custom-built apps and scripts that you have internally, Google Drive add-ons. So this is the number of places you and your users and your administrators and your help desk can go and install applications and authenticate those applications to your environment is just growing, and so that's where we're going to focus our energy today. So first of all, just to get a sense, I mean, many of you again have seen this, but it is pretty straightforward and pretty easy to to install and to integrate these integrated third-party applications, cloud applications. So this, you can see a sample of what you may see when you're installing a product through the Google Apps Marketplace or the Chrome Web Store or the Android Play Store, and it's a pretty simple. It shows you the APIs that the application is requesting access to, and an accept button. And this is pretty new to the world. I mean, to the world of IT. This is the amount of work and effort it would take to integrate applications in a legacy environment versus what it takes today. The fact that your end users can go and by themselves, in some cases unknowingly, accept these kinds of this kind of authentication and authorization, that can be challenging. And what we've seen at Better Cloud, and I think everyone again agrees with this and sees this in your own organizations, is that the number of cloud applications in use is growing tremendously. And we recently did a survey of about 1,500 IT leaders across a number of different organizations and in all over the world. And we asked how many cloud applications are you using today? How many do you plan to use in 2 years? And you can see just the growth across the board. And actually, it doesn't matter what size the organization is either. So you can see any size organization, the growth is there. And in enterprise, it's really pronounced. And again, the speed of adoption of these cloud applications, your end users are finding them, departmental leaders are finding them, IT is finding them, and it's just the ease in which to deploy these applications, to integrate these applications, it's amazing. And so it can be very powerful, and it can be very beneficial to an organization, but can pose a challenge and a potential threat to the IT organization. So again, it's pretty easy, pretty straightforward for end users to find these applications. You go to the Chrome Web Store, you do a search, and you find it. You're on your device, you're on your mobile device. You go to the Play Store or the Apple App Store, and you find these applications. Granting access, I'm sure you've done it yourself. Again, is pretty straightforward most of the time with one click or maybe 2 clicks of a button, and you're there. The number of applications is growing and growing tremendously, and are generally speaking unregulated, as we saw from the results of that poll. Generally speaking, are unregulated, and because of how new a lot of this is, the tools and the tools that give you the granular control, they're just they're just not there yet. But IT is still responsible for all of this, and so there's a couple of different ways that you can approach this in terms of frameworks, and this is, again, just to give you an idea, this is after talking to hundreds, maybe thousands of customers over years, and hearing the different approaches that people are taking and the different frameworks that they are using to look at these cloud applications and to determine how to govern them on an ongoing basis. So, it's on you, it's on IT, whether that's fair or not. It is on you to manage this risk. So there are 3 options. There are kind of 3 ways that we have seen this done, and the first is a very open policy, which is allow end users to install applications and just no oversight. And we have seen many organizations where this is their approach, and this may be their approach for a number of reasons. They don't have the resources to manage these and look at them on an ongoing basis. It may be because that's their philosophy as an organization, and they just say, hey, we trust our employees, and whatever they do, they do. It may be that they just don't, they haven't yet gotten around to it. So there are a lot of reasons, but this is probably the most popular, whether knowingly or not, is just to allow people to install applications and both end users and admins with no real oversight. The second is kind of the opposite, which is really a lockdown approach and saying, hey, this is a lockdown environment, and our users, our administrators will have to ask for permission before installing anything. And that is, again, can be philosophical, can be regulatory, and we've seen that across a number of organizations. And it's time consuming. I mean, we to do that, it's time consuming and potentially detrimental to the organization as a whole. There's a lot of value in these cloud applications. There's a lot of value in moving quickly, and locking it down and putting in a process that could take months, or, to get approval to install an application, that can be challenging. So the third is somewhere in between, and that is really to let users and administrators install applications, but to have more oversight and kind of control from an IT perspective. And this definitely requires more work than just leaving it open, but lets the organization move forward and advance, and really more coming at it from an audit perspective, and looking at things almost retroactively. But this seems to be what most people fall into, this middle ground. You want to know what's going on in the organization. You want to have control of what is going on in the organization, but you don't know enough about each individual department, each team, each user's needs in order to serve as that gatekeeper for every single application. Again, this is different for every organization, and I understand that. And this is different based on size and location, and again, the industry that you're in. But it's those are the three options that you have, or you can lock it down altogether and just not allow any applications to be installed. But we actually don't see that very often. So I'd love to now open up another poll here. This poll is really around, what is your organization's philosophy on cloud applications? And when I just went through those three options there, how do you view it? How do you approach this? So again, you'll see this poll on your screen now. Okay, great. So let me share these results here with you. So as you can see, I mean, really, the truly lockdown approach is the least popular, and the no oversight or kind of auditing, let's say, and controls after the fact are the two most popular. This, in a lot of cases, this just may have to do with the time that you've been running your organization in the cloud. This may have to do with, again, your general philosophy. In many cases, we've heard it really has to just do with the manpower that you have and the resources you have to do this work. Anyway, so thank you very much for filling this out. And so I'm going to now go to our recommendation, and talk about what we recommend. So what we recommend is we recommend number 3. So we recommend letting end users install, request these applications, and then evaluate that, and really still have control over it, but not to keep the organization completely locked down, which requires, again, a lot of work, number one, and number two, could slow the organization down as a whole. So I want to spend a little bit of time here in terms of, so this is the recommendation, and again, we have seen this across a number of our customers, that this is their approach, and I want to just talk about how can you implement this. And so the first step in this process is really understanding all the applications that are currently in use, and understanding what your users and your IT staff, what their needs are going forward. And this is to understand, are you missing, do you need a connector between Salesforce and Google Apps? Do you need something that for your sales team as an example, that takes your Google spreadsheets and turns them into quotes that can be shared publicly and designed nicely? Do you need password management in the Chrome browser? So just trying to understand what is it that you need, and also understanding what exists today. The next step is really internally, as an IT organization with your security team, potentially even all the way at the executive level, is to understand what is this policy? How are we going to evaluate these applications, and what is our policy going to be? Next is finding tools and leveraging tools to enforce that kind of a policy on an ongoing basis in order to continue to get these reports of which applications are out there, and to be able to control the usage of those, and then having some kind of regular review process. And again, depending on the size of your organization, depending on your philosophy, depending on how open or closed you are, that may be something that you're doing on a weekly basis, a monthly, a quarterly, a yearly, but having some review process and a regular process in order to make sure that these policies are still, first of all, make sense, and then second, are still being followed, and are you still have that visibility that they're in compliance. So the question I guess you would ask, and it's a very fair question, is how do you evaluate these cloud applications? There are, I'm not tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands. They're all over the place, and they're of all types, and they're from vendors of all shapes and sizes. And how do you evaluate these cloud applications to determine risk, to determine usefulness, to determine, that's the question that we get from customers is, okay, great, I understand that I have 50,000 applications installed. Now what do I do? So the first thing is understanding, and this could be potentially one of the most important things, is understanding the real function of this application and the data access that application is requesting. You see some of the statistics we have from our own customer base, where users have almost 20 applications, and in the Google environment, 36% of them have read-write access to Drive, and 9% have read-write access to email. These are relatively high numbers. To give an application access, read-write to your Drive, it would hopefully be a pretty useful application that really needs that kind of access. And so understanding that, saying, okay, this is an application that does workflows around Google Drive documents, and permissioning and around Google Drive documents, but it's asking me for read-write access on my email and on my calendar and Google Plus. That may not make sense. And so, it's pretty self-explanatory, but digging in here and really understanding that is really important. And you really want these applications to be asking you just for the right amount of permissions. You don't, on both sides, right? You want an application that's going to be the maker of that application is focused in the scope of what they're asking for, and you don't want to give too much access if you don't need to. So that's the first, really, I would say, pretty important step in this process. By the way, I should have mentioned before, if you have any questions throughout, you can ask the questions in the GoToMeeting question app, which you will see on the top right of your screen. It should be there. So if you have any questions, you can go ahead and ask those questions as we go. I'll try to answer some of them as we go through this, and then at the end I will try to go through and answer pretty much as many of them as I can. So just wanted to let you know in case anyone has questions. So so the next way, the next attribute you should be looking for is this application that you've installed, is this something that is on a particular user's account, or is this something being that has been authenticated and authorized across the entire org, the entire domain? So again, pretty important question, because if it's a intern that has given read access to Drive on just their one account, probably risk is small. If it's a super administrator who has installed domain-wide and has read-write access to everybody's email and read-write access to every piece of data across the entire organization, that's important to understand. Again, to understand, is that necessary? Because is that necessary? Number one, and number two, the applications that are domain-wide, you're going to want to drill into those really pretty carefully, because number one, you're someone who is a super administrator had to give that access, so it should be an application that's really been diligenced, and then number two is that again, it obviously has access to a lot more data. So so the scope, the scope of who that application touches and has access to, that's very important. The next is, you will notice, and I'm sure if you've installed Chrome extensions in the past or marketplace applications, you will notice that over time, many of these applications will ask for additional access. And some of that is because there'll be new APIs available from Salesforce or Office 365 or Google Apps or someone else, and they need to expand the access in order to continue operating. And then in other cases, they may just be expanding that access for no good reason. They may be expanding that access for functionality that you don't have access to. So it's important to know and to understand as that access evolves, because it is not, again, we're not living in a static environment. This is not a one-time I install the application. You may install a Chrome Web Store application, and you open up the Chrome browser, and it says this application needs the following permissions, new permissions, and it is important to have an understanding of why that is, and also to educate users to be aware of that and to be on the lookout for that. And then the vendor security and reputation is of course important, and there are a number of certifications that exist that you can look for to ensure that this vendor is a trusted vendor. So they range from Trustee to Safe Harbor to SSAE 16 to, there's a whole SOC 1, SOC 2. There's really a spectrum to go and look at. But looking at the certifications, looking at the reviews of that application, going and actually digging into that vendor a little bit more, making sure that they are a legitimate organization, that's important. And I think this is where probably it all comes down to, in many cases, it's the vendor who you need to be comfortable with, and it's the vendor that you're entering into this, let's say a partnership with, if you will, at least around your data. And so it's important that you that you understand who these vendors are. Many times the names of the applications do not match the vendors' names, and again, pretty important to realize is that many times your users will install an application, but if you go to look for that application and do a search for it, that's not the vendor behind it. And so it's important to just understand, and again, look at the certifications, look at the reviews, look at the organization, understand who they are, how long they've been around, who their customers are, and make sure that you feel comfortable there. And then lastly is really the value of this application. I mean, you're going through, there's going to be a lot of effort no matter what in terms of managing, auditing, controlling this, and making sure that the applications that are out there and that are being used are the ones that you want to be used. So there is, there's Angry Birds for Chrome. I've heard this. I've actually heard this example a number of times from some pretty large organizations where they don't want their users installing games on Chrome because they don't want them being distracted, and there are schools that don't want certain applications installed for a variety of reasons, that they don't want their students having access. So there's a number of But the application has to be obviously has to be useful, or at least not detrimental. And so so that's kind of the criteria, I would say, is as you go through this, making sure that the application has the access that it needs, the scope in terms of by user or by the entire organization that you want, that there's real value to this application, that it has the access, if it's asking for additional access over time, that's necessary access. So these are all the important steps in the process of evaluating these cloud applications. So that's, that is the core, I guess, of what I wanted to talk about. I have some more slides, but that is, I guess, the core of everything is really just understanding what exists today in your organization, understanding what your users need, hopefully trying to enable them so that they can be successful in what they're doing, and do that quickly. And creating this framework or this policy to say, we only want applications that have read-write on drive but not on email, that are end user only, that are not games, that are from vendors that have SSA 16, SOC 2, that and creating some understanding and some framework where you can roll that out across the organization and create that policy in your organization where you're enabling, on one side, you're enabling in a good way and enabling the organization to move forward, but you're protecting the organization at the same time. And so that is the core of really what we wanted to talk about today, and just to be aware that these exist. I mean, again, talking about 20 applications per user. So you'd be surprised. Again, it doesn't matter which platform you're running on, but if you're running on Google Apps as an example, it is very easy for your end users to go to the Chrome Web Store and just install some applications. They go to their mobile devices and they install some games, but for some reason give those, authenticate with their work email and their work profile identity. So you will probably be surprised by how prolific this is and how wide-reaching this is across everyone from your entry-level people all the way up to your executives. They may not even themselves be aware. They clicked on something in some link that someone sent them an email, and they clicked on the button that said accept, and they've got this thing installed. So that's important. And then so then going forward, it's how do you enforce these policies on an ongoing basis, and again, setting up a regular review process. And so for us, of course, for many of those on this webinar today, you're probably our customers, or you've used our product, or at least you've heard of it. And so we have a lot of this functionality, the ability to audit, the ability to look through these applications. We have a lot of that in our product today. And so, if you're interested and if you want to try out the product, you can go to bettercloud.com/install, and you can try out BetterCloud there. This is what you'll see when you go into the apps audit section of the product. This is a tool that we built. We released, I think, a little earlier this year, allowing you to go in, see all the applications, look at them based on permissions, based on vendors, based on all this information, and then ultimately create policies to manage them on an ongoing basis. And a lot of the best practices we have is from talking to customers, showing this to them, our success team implementing these policies with customers. And it's again, I can't stress enough. I mean, it's a new environment. I know that many of you who are responsible for managing this, that this is new. You may have been managing the firewalls, you may have been managing the Symantec system, you may have been, and now managing it in a way where your end users and your IT team and anyone who has admin access, they're going and installing these applications and giving this access. It's something that you should be aware of, and something obviously we are passionate about, I'm passionate about, and we've spent a lot of time trying to solve. And so So again, thank you very much. I'm going to take some of the questions. I think we have some good ones here. And in the meantime, if you're interested, the next webinar is going to be around automation and how you can automate. We're seeing this major trend of IT being able to get out of routine work potentially and moving more to strategic work. And what I mean by that is, as you move your mail server into the cloud, and you are now offloading that to Google or Microsoft, and they're the ones managing and maintaining and upgrading. Your time and your time is better spent actually working on change management with your users. Your time is better spent connecting different cloud applications that you're using. Your time is better spent researching new cloud applications that can enable users to be more effective and efficient. And so but again, it takes a different approach and a different way of looking at the problem and looking at how you can automate on an ongoing basis, how you can automate a lot of that work that you're doing. So if you have any questions, comments, thoughts, I'm interested. If you think this is a useful, if what we present today was useful, that I would love to know. If there's a specific topic you'd like to see us cover in the future, if we'd like us to go more in depth, less in depth, we're doing this hopefully to educate the community and that we hope that this is helpful in improving your organization and how you're managing and how you're maintaining these environments. So again, please email me if you have any thoughts. Let me just look here for some of the questions. So there's some questions about the slide. Can we get the slides? So in terms of that, we will be posting this. This is recorded, so we will be posting this on our website, and I think we will be sending this out to everyone who attended. So if you want to share this with others in your organization, you will be able to do that. So that's number one. Number two was a question about examples of applications that have that are installed domain-wide. So applications that are going to be installed domain-wide are going to be applications, honestly, like a Better Cloud, something that is being used by IT to manage and secure your environment, or maybe it's a backup. There are a number of backup vendors where they integrate with your Salesforce environment and they back up your entire environment. So they're going to have pretty much access to every piece of your environment, your Google environment, your Salesforce, your 365 environment. So that's another example. You may have something that does workflows. There's a number of workflow tools that are out there, and in order for them to function, in some cases they may need access to the entire environment. So it's usually going to be those types of tools. So in terms of there are some questions here about global certifications or standards that are set by the SaaS community. I mean, from what we have seen, the certification community, let's put it that way, has not caught up with the challenges that face the next generation of IT leaders. And I think we've seen, there are starting to be some cloud certifications around Microsoft. There are certifications around Google Apps deployment, Google Apps administrator. So those will take some of this into account. But at a larger level, there really hasn't been anything that we've seen that really covers that. Another question is automation around. Okay, actually, wow, a couple of questions. Interesting. A couple of questions around suspended accounts, and so. Okay, so the question is, will we cover the suspension of accounts in our automation webinar? And the answer is yes. that's a piece that we've seen that there's some framework for best practices around suspending accounts. If you talk to most people who are managing these cloud-first, cloud-based environments, you'll see that most of them have a checklist, usually in a spreadsheet, that they use to deprovision users. And the spreadsheet may differ a little bit in terms of the exact items, but the framework is generally the same. The steps and the process is generally the same. And we will cover that for sure in the next in the automation webinar. I mean, we could probably spend an entire webinar just doing provisioning and deprovisioning. I mean, it's that we could probably spend 5 hours doing that. I mean, it's pretty complex, and again, it gets only more complex as your cloud environment multiplies, and the more cloud applications you have, and the more departmental or team applications you have, the more complex that gets. So, excuse me. So let me see if there are any other questions here. Again, in terms of the slides or the recording, we will have the recording, and it will be posted after this and sent out, so you can share it with your teams if you're interested. So I think that is it. So thank you very much for joining today. I really appreciate it, and hopefully this is helpful. Again, I really urge you, if you have any feedback at all, any comments, good, bad, ugly even, just please send them to my email, david.politis@bettercloud.com, and we'll take that into account for the next webinar, which is in about a month. So thank you very much, and have a great day.